I have been waiting since last November to say this. Good afternoon and welcome to another Harmony Insights lunch date. My name is Erich Kurschat. I am the owner of Harmony Insights LLC, a company that allows me to work with organizations and consultants leveraging the DISC personality assessment. Anyone who knows me as a self-proclaimed DISC nerd. And so if you want to learn more about that, let's talk. I'm also the founder of the HR Hot Seat Inclusive Mastermind community. Many of you probably know about HR Hot Seat and have participated. We are entirely free. We have 12 different or 11 different licensed chapters around the country and do just a ton to support HR professionals who are seasoned in their career, who are looking to get into the field, who are in job transition. We provide free HR, CI, and SHRM recertification credits, career coaching, and so much more. So you can check out all of that at hrhotseat.com. You were in for a treat today. Some of you may know that the Harmony Insights Lunch Date series was fairly well received and well attended last year during the pandemic. The pandemic is still with us, but the lunch dates, unfortunately, are not as of last November. And I got to talking with my friend Julie Turney, and especially about her new book. And I said, if there is any reason to resurrect a Harmony Insights lunch date, it would be to celebrate her new book, Confessions of an HR Pro, Stories of Defeat and Triumph. Julie Turney, welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date.
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Oh my goodness. Look at all of these people that turned out.
It's fantastic. I'm so thrilled to see everybody. And I would recommend that because you were with us today, that's important to us. We'd like to know where you're also tuning in from. So put in the chat where you're joining us from, and then also paste your LinkedIn URL. What a great way to connect with one another by pasting your LinkedIn URL into the chat. So let's use that chat well over the course of the next 22 minutes or so while Julie and I are having a conversation. We want to invite you into that conversation. So if you have questions for Julie, stuff that you would like us to talk about, responses, reactions, comments to what we say, use the chat for that. Julie, we're already seeing people from both Chicago and Dallas. So
I
it's
know.
Arlington, Virginia, Wisconsin. We have folks from all over the place. I'm sure you can see that as well.
I can see, yeah. Wow.
You, as it turns out, have written a new book.
I have.
And full disclosure, you've invited me to be a part of this book. So I am a contributing author, but I don't benefit financially in any way from having contributed or from highlighting you in this way. I just believe so strongly in what you're doing and how you're doing it that I really wanted to be able to have a conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with all of you today about this book
Our
of mine.
Our goal will be to end around 12:30 Central Time, but to invite people to stick around to unmute themselves and continue the conversation from there. So I'll just lay that out at the outset that we may go beyond 12:30, but those of you who need to leave at that point are certainly welcome to do so. Julie, I'm sure you've talked about this book quite a bit. I know it's only been out for a bit, and actually the first copies are still becoming available. And I'm sure a lot of people are eager to dive into the what of the book, which we'll get to. This conversation
Yep.
for me isn't intended to be really to dissect the book and get into too much of the minutia of it. But I love asking the question why. I think it starts a much more interesting conversation. So we'll get to the what part. Can I start by asking you
Mhm.
why this book and why now?
Okay, why this book and why now? So, very simple answer. Now, there was no better time than being on lockdown to write a book, number one. And I, one of the things I learned about being on lockdown is that there are a lot of people who have some really crazy misconceptions about HR. And I've been on this journey since 2019 about demystifying HR. And I just really want to tell the truth about what happens in our space besides all the rants that people make on social media, like whether it's TikTok. And I had time to look at all of that during lockdown. and just be like, no, this is crazy. You need to set the record straight on some of this. And I decided Confessions of an HR Pro, why not? Like these are our confessions. I love Usher, and it just made sense.
I don't know if this isn't about me, certainly this is about you, but did you know that I have sung backup for Usher?
No,
I didn't
not
mean to
at
share
all.
that, but now that it's out there, I thought I would.
What? You need to tell me that story. You
This
can't
is
just
not about
gloss
me,
over
though. I
that.
love that.
That
We'll get back to that, but I love that Usher is um, an inspiration for you. And certainly, what better time than lockdown, as you put it, to really figure out what to do? How do I spend my time? Who am I serving? And how do I want to serve them? And I tried to put myself in your shoes and I thought, geez, if I were attempting to write my first book, and this is your first book, correct?
yes, it is my very first book.
If I were attempting to write my first book, that imposter syndrome would kick in hardcore. Who am I to call myself an author? Who's going to read this? Who's going to buy it? Did you face any of that? Were you challenged by any of those same questions?
Oh, yes. That very famous imposter syndrome has overtaken me on numerous occasions, especially the week before I released the book. However, I have amazing mentors and friends like you who believe in me and were like, just put the book out there, man. It's going to be great. People are going to buy it, people are going to read it. Just put it out there. And so, yeah, I did it. I just did it. Like, but the imposter syndrome is real. It was there. But there's a quote that Lisa Nichols gave that stays in my head. And she said, whatever people think of you is none of your business. And that gives me impetus every time. Like I want to do something, I'm gonna do it. I remember Lisa Nichols, like what other people think of you is none of your business. Just go for it. So I did.
That's a fantastic quote. I think of another one immediately that, and I don't know who I can attribute it to, and I'm gonna paraphrase, but it's something along the lines of, if you want to avoid criticism, do nothing and say nothing and be nothing. And that really resonates with me. Both of those quotes are so inspiring. And Seth Godin, who's a marketing guru, talks about just ship, get something out there. And I've heard it said that if you're not, embarrassed by the very first thing that you ever put out there, then you waited too long
Way too
to
long.
distribute it. Now, of course, you wouldn't
Yeah,
intentionally put something out there that you're embarrassed by, but if those perfectionistic tendencies kick in, you may never get it out there to begin with, right? And
it's
I
true.
understand in talking with you that you had a number of challenges. So let me ask you, is this a book that was published by Penguin or Random House by any chance?
Nope, nope, nope. My book is self-published.
I love that. So tell me then, and we will get into the book for those of you who are curious, of course we will, but tell me what goes into self-publishing uh, a labor of love like this.
Ooh, a lot of hard work. I decided that I was gonna write and publish my book on a low to no budget because for two reasons. Number one, I wanted to respect the process. I wanted to understand the process and respect the process so that when I have to hire someone to do book two, um, I understand all the stuff that goes into it, right? And the other thing was that I really just wanted to. I'm a sponge. I like to learn. Like I still love to learn. So for me, it was just a great experience. And I wanted to inspire other people who have thought about writing a book, but just figured like, I can't afford a publisher. I can't afford this. I can't afford that. Now you have no reason whatsoever to say any of those things because I've shown you how to do it on a low to no budget.
I love it. I'm going to put in the chat a link to the book for those who haven't purchased it, and you don't have to have read it yet to take part in this conversation. And just to let you know, that is an Amazon associate link. So any purchases made through that link won't cost you anymore, but it'll support these conversations that I host, and then also will support Julie certainly because you're purchasing her book. So I thought I would include that link. Julie, I know that there was some disbelief along the way when you put the book out into the world. You were making it available on Amazon, and you didn't trust the numbers you were seeing. Tell us about that.
No, I definitely did not trust the numbers. So I put my book out on the 3rd of June. And between the 3rd of June and like the 5th of June, I was seeing like 30 something copies. And my husband and I were keeping track of it. I was like, okay, let's see what happens here. So I released my book in two versions, the paperback version and the Kindle version. And for the first like 4 days, we were just watching to see what would happen. So when I hit the 100 in sales mark, I was like, what? Like, no, that's more than the people that I know for sure would have bought my book. Like, and I know it wasn't my mom because she doesn't use her credit card online. So I know it wasn't her. So I was like, oh, okay. But on the between the 14th and the 20th of June, something really strange happened. And my book went to like 500 sales. And I was like, what? How did that happen? Like, I don't know how it happened. I don't know who it was. I don't know what it was. I don't know where I was. I don't know. I just woke up one morning and I said to my husband, babe, 500 copies of my book have been sold. He's like, what? When we looked, sure enough, I was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe it.
I
Like, I
love it.
cannot believe it. My mind is still completely blown by that.
So you have, and that's great. Obviously, it's resonating with people, or even just how you're setting it up, because there aren't too many books that had been available yet for people to read. So it's just how it's being set up, sort of the premise of this book. So you have a history as an HR practitioner. You run your own company, organization at this point called HR at Heart, and I'm gonna HR at Heart Consulting, and I'm gonna put the link to your website in the chat as well. I could even show people. Um, your website. So let's just take a look at it. HR at Heart Consulting is at hratheart.co. So you're going to see a lot of information there about how you are helping people currently. People can check that out. Why was it important to you to collaborate with contributing authors? And or, depending on how you want to answer this, what did you learn from your contributing authors? What did you learn from the people who helped you assemble this book of confessions?
So the first thing that I learned is that my HR community is awesome. I'm so grateful for all of you especially Erich, everyone who contributed to my book. We had one meeting, if you remember. We had one Zoom call with everyone on the call. I said, this is what I want to do. You are the people I want to be a part of this. And all of you said yes. Like no one hesitated. No one was like, oh, nah, nah, nah. No one wavered. Everyone said yes. I had put a deadline of when to submit your contributions, and most people met the deadline, which is amazing. And I wanted to have co-authors on this book, and every book I do going forward, I want co-authors because it's not just my story. It's the story of HR and it's our story. Therefore, I think it's important that everybody have a share in this book, in these books, because there will be more.
I love it. I know you're already talking about your second one, which just blows my mind.
Yes.
As the first is being released, you already have ideas about your second book. So people should line
Mhm.
up for that as well when it's announced.
Yeah.
I know you'd be somebody who really values community, HR community, and serving HR professionals. And I would just want to pull up. I was fortunate enough to get a PDF copy of this book because the hard copy hasn't shown up quite yet
No.
because they're just fresh off the press. But if people can see here, I'm going to highlight something that really resonates with me. There was a time when I felt so alone in my profession and my desire to adopt a more human-centric approach to practicing HR. My sense is in reading what I've read of the book so far, in full disclosure, I haven't gotten through the entire thing because this PDF was just made available, but why is the sense of HR community, especially through the stories that are told in your book, why is HR community so important to you, and how does it address or in some way not solve, we'll go with address this sense of aloneness that even in a sea of people who practice human resources that you can still feel alone at times?
Yeah. I felt very alone in the very early stages of my HR career, very, very alone, because even though we have such a huge profession with so many people in it, not everyone shares, not everyone supports, not everyone cares, to be honest. Like there are some people we know who are in HR just for the just for the accolades. It's not so much about the people. They just want to have status. And you have some people who are just here for the money. You have people here for different reasons. And I struggled a lot very early in my career with simple, what seems like simple things to me now. When I would ask for advice about things like recruiting and putting vacancies together, or I would ask for like competency frameworks, or I would ask for salary frameworks and those kind of things in the Caribbean, um, it was very hard to come by. You couldn't even call the local HR association and ask them those things. They had no answers. And pretty much useless to me, which is why I don't even bother with most HR associations, because just you can't get everything that you need out of them, somewhat, if anything. And I was just frustrated by that, and I was like, no, there has to be a better way. Like I am not alone. I know I'm not alone, but I couldn't find my people. Like I struggled to find my people, and when I started to engage on LinkedIn and become more intentional about engaging on LinkedIn, I started to think about, well, who are the people I really want to connect with? And who are the people that I really want to bring into my space to share and give me the things that I need, and I can do the same for them. And so I started to find my community one by one, two by two, three by three on LinkedIn. And that's how I built my community. And it's been such a very enriching journey. But there are so many, as an HR for HR coach, talking to HR professionals, I have sat throughout most of COVID listening to HR professionals talk about how alone they feel in their roles all over the world, just feeling alone, like, they don't have a voice, they're struggling, and they don't know how to get the support. And when I mention places like HR Hot Seat, Hacking HR, most people have never heard of these things. So it is really heartwarming to me to now have a community, and I want people to have that. But I also want to share that story because as HR, and if you're popular, I don't want to say popular because that just sounds weird to me. But if you're known in HR, you don't have as those kind of struggles. Your struggles may be a little bit different. But I think that the people who are known in HR don't talk about those kind of experiences or stories. They don't share them. They just share their successes. If you see how I show up on LinkedIn, I show up both ways. You're going to know when things suck. You're going to know when I'm mad at leadership. You're going to know when I, have something important to say, because I'm just going to say it. And I think that that's important. Like you need to show both sides. We see so many times people who are just like, I love my career. My CEO is amazing. Was it always that way? No. Well, tell the truth then.
I love it. You're so direct about some of these things, and I know that comes from your passion for, as you've put it, helping encouraging people to be transparent about their struggles and their successes, which both of which are documented in your book. And you're not just building community virtually. I know you to be heading up Disrupt HR in the Caribbean. You are from Barbados. I believe you live there now.
Yes.
And so you are responsible for a Disrupt HR chapter in your neck of the woods, aren't you?
I am responsible for Disrupt HR Caribbean,
Yeah.
which covers Barbados, Trinidad, and Jamaica. So I run
Yeah.
all three of those chapters. Yes.
So you're doing stuff on LinkedIn, Twitter, but you're also bringing people together in person, which I think is important, of course, safely these days, but is
Yeah.
important to highlight. So as you're putting together this book, you're working with contributing authors. You probably have your own thoughts about what you want to put into it. My contributions aside, what is one story from the book, either that you introduced into it or that you received from somebody else, that really has stuck with you, that you feel that as people are reading the book, they should make sure to read because it's going to say something unique
Yeah.
about the profession.
Oh, I only get one.
Just one for, unfortunately, we're pressed for time. We're going to go with
Okay.
one for
Okay.
now.
Got it. Okay. I would say the most outstanding one for me would be Katrina Collier. So Katrina Collier's story is covered in the chapter where we talk about mental health. Katrina is from the UK. She's a recruiter. Well, she doesn't call herself a recruiter anymore, but she wrote a book as well. And her book is called The Robot Proof Recruiter. And it talks about humanizing recruitment in the workplace. And she's a stalwart to me, like one of my heroes. And when Katrina wrote her contribution about the struggles she had as a child, being abused as a child, and then bringing, not dealing with those things, so becoming an adult, entering the workplace, and how she dealt with performance issues when they were raised by her leaders because of not being feeling psychologically safe. She had a lot of challenges throughout her life until she had gone to therapy and got the help that she needed. That for me, there are quite a few people, but for me, that experience that Katrina gave really hits home for me about the impact of how HR deals with their own personal issues and tribulations. For sure, yeah, that one's a big one for me.
I think
When I
quite
when she
often,
sent that, I cried.
yeah, I think, and understandably so, I think quite often HR is taking care of other folks. And then you think, okay, who's taking care of HR? And obviously you're among those people. You are HR for HR, as you put it,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's any accident that you have the word heart in the name of your company. And I know it's mentioned even in the foreword of your book, and it probably shows up elsewhere as well, that why is that word heart so important to you in doing the work of human resources or in putting out a book like this?
I really think when you think about the context of the heart and what it does, you cannot live without your heart. It pumps that bloody blood right through your body, right? And that's how HR is. Like every insight, every emotion, every piece of knowledge, every person that sits in an organization and the experience they have with us is a heart centric experience. Like you're not going to get that somewhere else. So when we become HR professionals, we become the heart of the organization. We're the cornerstone, we're the core of the organization. It cannot function without us. I believe that with all of my heart.
All of
For
your heart.
lack
I
of
knew that
a
was coming.
for lack of a better expression, yeah, but it was definitely intentional because I believe that that's what HR is. We are the
Yeah.
heart, we are the pulse of the organization, and it cannot exist and thrive without us.
So, Julie, Harmony Insights lunch dates have always been intended to just get people's feet wet so that they can go out and learn more and that they're inspired to dig around a little bit and see what more is out there on a particular topic. In the chat, I've included some links to some of the things that you do. If you can believe it, we're already up on time. And as I mentioned, people are going to be invited to stick around, assuming you are available as well
I'm good. I'm good.
for a bit.
I'm
But
good.
I
I
want to
shut down
make
the rest of my time just for you.
oh, I love it. I want to
Mhm.
make sure. Oh, and she has the Sunny D too. Did you bring enough for everybody?
I have a I'm battling a sore throat. I don't know if I have a sinus infection, a cold. I don't know what it is, but these are life.
Stay on
These
top of
belong
it.
to my
Stay on
children,
top of it.
but I'm having one today.
Some people are looking probably to get on with their afternoon at this point, only having budgeted 30 minutes for our conversation. What are you most hoping? And then we'll end with where people can find you. What are you most hoping, as succinctly as you can put it, that people will take from reading your book?
I want people to take from my book that I'll give you two types. So if you're an HR professional, I want you to take away from the book, number one, you are not alone. You have a community. And all the stuff that you are experiencing in your HR career is not stuff that happens just in your head, but these things are real and they're happening to other people. And I want you to know that I see you and I relate to that. If you're in HR and you are struggling to figure out where you go in this journey, I want you to know you have a safe space with HR at Heart. If you're new to HR, I want you to know what you're getting yourself in for. It is a ride, it's no joke. And if you're not ready to take it seriously, just look at these confessions and go, okay, nope, not for me, and move on. And if you go, okay, this is for me, I think in the back of the book, I list all of my communities, including HR Hot Seat. So I've given people a list of places they can go to get support. If they are an HR professional and they're feeling alone, I've shared my community in the back of the book. And that includes HR Hot Seat, because you guys are absolutely awesome. And I love every time I'm in your space. And I love you, Erich. And people need to know about all the amazing stuff that you're doing, my friend, because you are HR awesome, in the words of Wendy.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that. And we love you, Julie. This has been just a fantastic conversation. I'm sure even just in the little bit we've talked about the book and your reasons behind it, which was so important to me, people will be inspired to read it if they've picked up their own copy, or to get a copy if they haven't. Where can people most easily access you following this conversation, to pick your brain, learn more about your passion for the human resources discipline and anything else you may want to share?
Uh, I live on LinkedIn. There's no better place to find me on LinkedIn. If you want me to respond within 10 minutes after you send me a message, you need to send it to LinkedIn. If you send it to my email, oh, could be a problem. I have like over 8,000 unread messages in my email. I'm like a hot mess when it comes to certain things like that. But LinkedIn is where I live. That's the easiest place to find me. Yep.
And this
Yep.
is her fancy, you're taking advantage of a number of different things that LinkedIn makes available. So this is
Oh,
where you
yes.
can find out more about Julie and on her LinkedIn page. So we'll leave it for there. Honestly, if you just type in Julie Turney in Google, you're going to see so much more of her beyond LinkedIn. She's been on so many podcasts, has hosted so many podcasts, has hosted so many really important conversations with HR professionals, those looking to get into the profession, those who are serving HR professionals. You really do so much to bring the HR and HR adjacent community together. So I want to personally thank you for that, for inspiring me to do the work that I do, inspiring me as an introvert to put myself out there and step outside of my comfort zone, because I know you're doing the same as an introvert yourself. And for purposes of this conversation, thank you so much for putting a book out there when it wasn't easy and you had to self-publish it, and you're dealing with a pandemic in the meantime, and trying to figure out what to do with your Disrupt HR chapter. You got a book out there, and it's really going to have an impact on the lives of so many people. So from us to you, thank you, Julie, for all of that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm loving the comments. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate you so much, Jane. I see you there with that book. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Looks
Oh
like more
wow.
than one person has a copy of your book. I want to
Oh
draw it to
wow.
a close at this point, at least for people who need to move along. Hopefully, you will stay in touch with both me and Julie on LinkedIn. You'll check out the HR Hot Seat community. You'll look up Julie at hr@heart.co, I believe, and keep your eyes peeled for additional Harmony Insights lunch date pop-ups. You never know when they're gonna resurface. It's been a fun project for me, and I could think of no better reason than to have one today. But the series itself is still dormant until some as of yet to be determined date. So we'll see what happens. But go about your afternoon if you need to, and if you want to stick around, you're welcome to do so as well. So one final thank you to Julie. For those who have to leave, we really appreciate you.